Today we're going to look at graphing the equation. Let me get rid of this stuff. Crazy things happen sometimes. We're going to graph y equals, what's going on here? Pen. There we go. Y equals 4x squared. Okay, so that's what we're going to graph. In order to graph this, okay, we need to find our vertex. So we need to find our vertex, which is the point H and K. In order to find our vertex, we first need to look at our x value. So the x value of our vertex, H, is going to equal negative b over 2 times a. That's also our axis of symmetry, if you remember from the previous lesson. So here we have our original equation, 4x squared. And there's only one term. So we need to figure out what our b and our a are. So we're going to compare it to our original standard form of an equation, ax squared plus bx plus c. And what we see is that the only term we have is the x squared term. So a is 4. There's no b and there's no c. So what that means is that b is 0 and c will be 0. So that when I plug this in, we get negative 0 over 2 times a, which is 4. So then we get negative 0 over 8, which is 0. Okay, so we have negative 0 and 8. So that's 0. So now we need to find our k. We're going to find our k by taking our original equation of 4x squared, and in place of x, we're going to put 0. So that becomes 4 times 0 squared. 0 squared is 0 times 4 is 0. So our vertex is 0, 0. That doesn't help me graph, so I need to find another point. Okay, and we're going to find a point by picking, if x equals 0, we're going to add 1 to that. So we're going to now set x equal to 1. So now that we know x equals 1, we're going to have a point somewhere at 1, and then we're going to find out what that other point is. So now we're going to find our point by plugging in for y equals 4x squared. We're going to plug in 4 times 1 squared, which is 4 times 1, which is 4. So now we have a point at 4, 1 and 4. Now we can graph. So let's graph this equation at 0, 0, and 1, 4. Okay, so here we got to remember that our vertex, was at 0, 0, and we had a point at 1 and 4. So let's go put those on there. Okay, here we have a point at 0, 0, and we're going to go over 1, up 4. Okay, well, if you remember anything, if you remember from yesterday, we talked about our axis of symmetry, which goes through this line. Okay, since I had a point at 1, 4, I can go across that axis of symmetry the same distance, 1 across. So I'm going to go 1 across over here, and now I have a point there. Okay, so now I can draw on my parabola, and I'm not going to go past the line 2 because I don't know what 2 is in our function. So then we're going to mirror this other side. Okay, and because we don't know what our 2 is, we're just going to keep it within those bounds. Can't go outside that. Okay, so there we go. That's how you graph y equals 4x